Hey everyone, welcome to Design, Create, Inspire with me, Bryn Young. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about beating a creative block. So when you're feeling just like constrained, you're feeling like you just can't really get creative, which can be really hard if you are in an industry where you are expected to be creative. I'm going to give you a couple little tips and tricks of how I work through that when I'm going through it. Before we get started, things might look a little differently. And I want to talk to you a little bit about it because, in a way, it kind of goes into this idea of a creative block. So, I want to tell you a little bit about me. And I also want to tell you about a little bit of a challenge I'm trying to do for myself to break out of it. Okay. So, yes, this is not totally the 5 things or the whatever things I'm going to give you, but listen up because it kind of goes hand in hand. So, I'm setting a goal for myself and I'm putting it out here so that you can hold me accountable and I can hold myself accountable. But I want to start showing up consistently. Now, it has been difficult for me to um, create new content on like a weekly basis just because of the ebbs and flows of my businesses and of family life and of getting the quiet time to come in here and record and do this. But I'm going to tell you a really big secret. One of the biggest things that holds me back from setting it all up, getting organized, creating some content, putting it together on YouTube, creating new videos for you week after week, is I tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist. So as you can see, I am recording this right now on my computer. I'm not using my nice Sony camera with my beautiful microphone. I don't have my whole backdrop set up like I normally do. And that would usually prevent me from sitting down and pressing play because I want to create good content for you. I want the sound quality to be good. I want visually it to be professional and nice and curated. And, that's me, that's my brand. I tend to do that. But it really does hold me back. It holds me back from sharing information when I'm feeling creative. It holds me back from doing it consistently because like this is a good example. Right now I need my Sony. It is propped up perfectly, but it is really hard to get it to autofocus unless I'm sitting here. So I usually need someone else to go in and autofocus it or manually focus it on my face while I'm sitting somewhere so that it stays in focus. And I'm home right now without anyone here. And so I was like, okay, I could either not record, not create more content for you because I can't do that, or I can just release the perfection. I can take out my computer, just do this with my computer, and this is something I am trying to release because I am realizing that what is more valuable for you? More valuable for you is just getting you the content and the information. And that is what's most important. Of course, quality content 98% of the time is the goal. If I have to do stuff like this, that's what it takes. And so I am setting a goal for myself to release that perfectionist a little bit and instead show up a little more raw, real, consistent, whatever that means. If that means a 5-minute video versus a 30-minute video, whatever that is. And so I'm trying to create these non-negotiables where it's like, okay, yeah, I create a video for you each week. It's just what I do. It's a non-negotiable. And so this is something that I am working through. This is something that's really important for all of us who are living really busy lives, who are trying to set goals and expectations. Maybe you're taking your exams. Maybe you are trying to hit a goal for work. Maybe it's an exercise goal. Whatever it is, creating these parameters to allow yourself the flexibility to hit those, but without so much control and perfection. So I am trying to lead by example by releasing that a little bit to be more consistent. So that is why this is happening. And, if there's glare on my glasses, it is all good. I blend in. I'm like a green screen over here, floating head. I painted my wall green and then like always only wear green. So it's a thing. But anyways, that was a long little winded intro. But to let you know that like these are things that we all kind of deal with. And when we go through things like creative blocks, a lot of times it can be this perfectionist coming in or us really wanting to have control. And it's so ironic because it's usually with creativity when you stop thinking about it, when you're sleeping, when you're doing something totally different, that's when those creative experiences happen. And so, ironically, it's the release of the control that ends up making you the most creative. And in something like architecture, that can be really, it's like a dichotomy because we're in this very science, math based industry that does have a lot of control. At the same time, we're in this creative space where we're not supposed to have control. So we're supposed to create these really like loose, beautiful sketches, free flowing, no control within these really set parameters of code and math and geometry and all this stuff. And so I find as an architect creating this cohesion of these two very different polarizing experiences can be difficult sometimes, but it's something I always remind myself. So if I'm working on a new project and I'm feeling really uninspired in those early stages, I have learned to just stop, just get away from whatever I'm doing, do something totally different. And I know in the time, especially say you're working for someone and your boss is like, okay, we need designs for this by Friday. And then they see you out like riding your bike. You probably feel like, oh my God, I'm not doing my work. I'm supposed to be doing this. But it's that release that can actually help you be a much better architect, designer, creative person in the long run. So, of course, if you're only out riding your bike 24/7 and not getting to work ever, then, that cannot be a great thing. But, there's balance in everything. So, figuring out how to best work with these blocks, these stifling feeling that can end up feeling so frustrating and just like overwhelming is super important. So today I'm going to give you 6 kind of more definitive ways that you can use to help beat your creative block. Now, what I just mentioned of like trying to go do something else is essentially the first one is get busy. Get busy with something else. Because when you let go, ideas come in. And especially with something like architecture, usually we are filled with creativity and new ideas when we're experiencing something different, whether it's going outside and seeing some landscaping or interacting with someone and something that they say, it pops up and it comes into our brain. So getting busy with something else puts our mind into this new framework without so much pressure. So get out there, get busy, try to release that control of the current situation. Number 2, write it down, but then move on. Now, again, I'm going to be talking a lot about like moving on or trying new things. Again, that can maybe feel a little uncomfortable at first, but just bear with me. So one thing I like to do is I like to write it down. Sometimes this happens a lot in like in middle of the night. If I wake up thinking about something and I don't write it down, I think to myself, I have to keep thinking about it because otherwise I'm going to forget it. So instead of freaking out or losing a bunch of sleep or continuing to like have that ruminate in your brain, write it down. And what you can do here, which I think is a really fun practice or challenge, is you could write down what it is you need to do, whatever that creative thing is, And then write down some like challenging questions. Now, you don't have to answer those questions right now, just write them down. Then move on. And it's so ironic and crazy how sometimes those questions will be answered later down the thing. Like you'll be talking to someone that evening and all of a sudden they say something and you're like, oh my gosh, you just answered my question. How did you even do that? So write down what it is you're looking to do. Write down some of like the most challenging maybe aspects, if there is any challenging aspects, or maybe like whatever it is that's kind of creating the most hurdle, or whatever you don't want to do, like whatever the like least favorite part of what you're doing. Like maybe you're designing something that's really challenging. And the idea of having to figure out this challenging aspect is like, I don't even want to do that. Okay, just write that down. Again, you're not forcing answers at this point. You're just putting it down and then move on. Okay, number 3, work your brain in other ways. Again, these kind of, piggyback off one another, but in this way, it's like learn something new. This could be play an instrument. Maybe you're learning how to play an instrument, or painting. Say you're trying to learn a new art medium. Listen to a podcast. So it could be a podcast that is totally unrelated to whatever creative industry or whatever creative block you're in. It could be something completely different. But what this does is when we challenge our brains in other ways, it can spark those new ideas. I will tell you, there has been so many times where I am feeling stuck on something and I go and I listen to like a business podcast or a podcast that has nothing to do with like architecture or design. And something is said in there that sparks this idea that gets me flowing and gets me excited and sparks out all these new ideas. There's also ways, this can go into a whole neuroscience realm of how our brains work once we start challenging them in new ways. So like learning an instrument, learning a new language, even exercise, like going out, maybe going mountain biking or going rock climbing, things like this, that it simultaneously takes our mind off of whatever we're feeling stuck on. We're challenging our brain in new ways, and we're literally firing new synapses through our brain that will help you get creative for whatever you're feeling blocked on. So number 1, get busy with something else. Number 2, write down what you are stuck on, what's challenging you, move on. Number 3, work your brain in new ways, either creative ways or just alternative ways. Number 4, be okay with the roadblock. Now, again, this can feel really stifling or frustrating, or say you have a deadline and you're like, you start spiraling because you're like, I'm not going to make this deadline. I'm not going to produce something great because I don't know what to do. Instead of continuing to spiral, and instead of continuing to force it, be okay with that roadblock. So don't beat yourself up about not feeling aligned with what you're working on, because it happens and it's totally normal. And it's so important, especially if you are in a creative industry, to understand that creativity ebbs and flows. And if you try to force it, it's never going to work. You seriously can't force it. And again, this is why sometimes you're sitting down. This is also why sometimes like the 9 to 5 doesn't work for a creative industry, because it'll be like 9 to 5 and I'm not creative at all. And then all of a sudden it's like 10 p.m. and I'm like, oh my God, I have all these ideas. I'm like, don't talk to me. I'm writing all down and like, I'm super into it. And this actually happened to me in the middle of the night last night. Finally, my kids, it was like one kid had a fever, the other kid's not sleeping. Finally, they both were asleep. And then, so of course I couldn't sleep. But then I was like, I redesigned this like whole floor plan that was totally different than I had originally done it. And I was like, oh, but that works. And then I'm like all excited about it. So, be okay with the roadblock and know that it will ebb and flow, and it's not going to be a forever thing. And once you do release that and you sit comfortably with that roadblock, honestly, usually that blockage passes. So get comfortable with it. It is so important in life to start getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And especially in a creative industry like architecture or, design, graphic design, anything like that, getting comfortable in that uncomfortability really will help. And it will help you not spiral, which is such a big part of it. All right, number 5, get inspired. Now, of course, this could be totally different for whoever you are. Again, this could almost be back in like using your brain in a different way. This could be different for everyone, whether it's nature, whether it's watching a movie and having a whatever the movie is. It could be, again, podcasts. It could be anything that inspires you. It could be going and having dinner with your best friend. It could be whatever is inspirational to you. Try to get inspired in other ways. And if you are, say, if you're an architect and you're feeling blocked about some architecture, watch like an inspiring documentary on architecture. There's this really great one right now that's on Apple TV, not sponsored, but you can if you want. No. That's called Home. And it's so inspiring. Every time I watch it, I'm like, these people are freaking cool. And I want to be these architects and these people that live in these super cool houses. And I'm always super inspired. So, whether it's that, whether it's, again, like going out for a nature walk or whatever it is, try to just get inspired. Okay, number 6, get off social media. Now this, you might be like, wait, you just told me to get inspired. And I usually do that by like scrolling social media. Try to do it in a different way, because honestly, like, yes, okay, social media can be super inspirational, but it can also be a lot of noise. Social media is very hypnotic, and it's very, well, especially nowadays, like TikTok, everything, it's like 15-second reels. It's a lot of chaos coming in all at once. When you have a lot of noise coming in at once, it's a lot of sensory overload, and it can actually block your thoughts that are flowing freely. And to get a creative outlet, we really want creative flow, which is space, right? So we want our brains to have space to have that creative flow. And if we're constantly being told the information via, other people's posts or the news or whatever's being fed to us, it's hard for our brains then to get the creative flow to expand and go from there. So, watching a movie or something, yes, you're being told a story or whatever, but you're watching one thing. You're not getting like 20 different posts in 15 seconds. And it's just not like the sensory overload that is social media. So if you are feeling blocked, just take a break from it. If you find inspiration from certain people on social media, definitely see if there's other outlets where you can consume their information. Or use social media with a specific purpose, which can be difficult, a lot of self-control, but say there's one architect or designer or graphic designer or someone that you do really love, like, and you want to go get inspired. Okay, well, go on maybe their social media profile and just consume their content and then move on. Or, like I say, like try it maybe from a different outlet, like maybe try it from a just going on their website, go old school. So if you find yourself scrolling a lot when you're in a creative block, just know that it probably won't get resolved that way. So try to go about it a little bit different. Okay, those are my six things. So to recap, it's, kind of, they all build on top of each other, but really it's a lot of just getting outside your head and releasing that control. So get busy with something else, write it down and move on, work your brain in other ways, be okay with that roadblock, get inspired, and get off social media. All right. I am challenging myself to get outside my creative blocks, show up for you more consistent. I am doing this, guys. I'm creating some non-negotiables. I'm showing up here and I'm going to produce this stuff, whether it's on my Sony and my nice camera and my nice setup, my nice microphone, or it's raw and it's real like this. But I want to be here for you. So let me know what you think. Was this just like, okay, no, Bryn, we don't really care. We'd rather see you once a month with really like quality content? Or are you into this? What do you think? Also, like, if I maybe do a little bit shorter, if I come up and I'm like, hey, here's 5 minutes of fire content, see you next week. I feel like I need to do that and be that for you to be consistent and help you out because, right? My whole mission here is to inspire you, to help you, to get you creative and licensed and, to create this amazing online community of artists and designers and creatives and entrepreneurs and all this good stuff. And, I was realizing earlier today that like, how am I supposed to do that if I'm just worried about this perfectionism and having these creative, blocks? Because I say to myself all the time, I don't know. I have all these creative blocks. I don't really know like what do I even come on here and like I don't know what to do today. And then if I go and I look on my notes, I'll tell you I have a year's worth of already done content. I just need to go and do it. So my promise to you, I'm releasing that perfection. Let me know what you think. If you support me in the comments. Let me know you're rooting for this and you're on board. You can also do that via reviews, subscribe and review, of course, on things like podcasts, Design, Create, Inspire. So, all right, guys, that is all I have for you today. I will see you next week. Also, I have some really awesome like free things that I'm going to be giving to you. I'm trying to redevelop my website a little bit. So I have like a full freebie library with a bunch of like free downloads and all that good stuff. So I'm trying to organize that now. Stay tuned. I'm going to start, giving those out so you can just get more so we can all support one another. All right. I will see you guys next week. I promise.